Have you ever been having a conversation with somebody and they went like this? Are you talking to me? I have a ton of times. This is super common if you have strabismus. And I know my eyes look straight right now, but up until 3 months ago, I had a pretty severe lazy eye or strabismus. Here's a picture. So imagine me walking up to somebody in the grocery store and saying, "Hi, do you know where to find the peanuts?" or whatever it is that I was looking for. And so many times that was the reaction that I got. The person would kind of do a double take, and then they'd be like, "Me?" And then they'd kind of look behind them. Super common. If you have strabismus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this can become a super uncomfortable situation where you feel awkward and then you start feeling bad about yourself, and it can leave you feeling pretty dejected. And so I wanted to give a few ideas and tips that have really helped me and helped me for 34 years up until I just had surgery, and I've done vision therapy to make my eyes straight. But before that, I was dealing with this on a daily basis. So some of the things that have helped me, I think, can also help you, right? I don't want you to hate me because I'm going to downplay it a little bit. All right, so just prepare yourself that I'm going to try to help you take the drama out of having a lazy eye. And I know some people are going to find that offensive because they'll feel like I'm downplaying something that's really serious and something that is super hard to live with. And I'm not saying that it's not hard, but thinking of it in that way where you're like, "Oh, this is the worst. I can never do anything. I can't get a job. I can't make friends." That's not going to get you anywhere. And so I want to give you some ideas and tools that can help you to make those interactions with new people not so stressful, not so much anxiety, and maybe even enjoyable. So here are the 3 tips that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so for tip number 1, you set the mood for any conversation that you're a part of. So that means that if you are meeting someone new and they are noticing your lazy eye and you immediately look down and do this, and you're sad and awkward and weird, then they're probably going to act awkward and weird with you too. And they might avoid eye contact. And then that's going to make you feel worse, right? But if you're looking at someone and meeting them for the first time and you smile and say, "Hi, nice to meet you," and your eye is turned in or turned out and they see that, they'll be like, "Oh, their eyes aren't straight." But then they'll see you smiling and confident and they'll be like, "Oh, but I guess it's not a big deal. Moving on." And they just move right forward. So they're going to feed, whoever you're talking to is going to feed off of how you act. I know this because I spent 10 years of my adult life with a super severe lazy eye. Picture. Right, super severe lazy eye, and I didn't know how bad it was, and I didn't notice it in pictures. I don't even know how I didn't know, but I didn't know, and it didn't really bother me that much to meet new people. It wasn't really a big deal. It wasn't until I realized how severe my eye turn was and I started taking selfies and seeing holy smokes, my eye is out there, that I got hypersensitive and hyper aware of people. And then I started acting weird, and guess what? They started acting weird too. Before, no one seemed to even care or notice. It wasn't until I noticed that it became a problem. So you set the mood. So do you want it to be awkward? Do you want it to be sad and embarrassing? Or do you just want it to be whatever, this is just how it is, moving on with my life? You get to choose. Set that mood. Okay, so for tip number 2, don't layer emotions. So I'm going to tell a little story, a hypothetical that can help illustrate this. So this has happened to me a million times. It's probably happened to you too. Well, not the whole thing, but anyways, okay, imagine you're at a grocery store and this lady down the aisle from you drops her purse on the ground and she doesn't notice. So you try to get her attention. You say, "Oh, excuse me, you dropped your purse," right? And she turns around and looks at you, and she happens to look at you in the eyes and notice that one eye is going forward and one eye is going out here. And she does this move. Are you talking to me? Okay. That's what happened, right? Raise your hand if this has ever happened to you. Can I raise both hands? So many times. And then you tell someone and they're like, no, that's not what happened. I'm like, no, for real, this happens all the time. Okay, so anyways, this situation happens, and what are the first things that you think? For me, I always just think, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I don't know, that's kind of my go-to thought in that situation is this is uncomfortable or this is awkward, right? Now, if I were just to stop at this is uncomfortable and be like, this is what being a human is. There's some parts of life that are uncomfortable. Okay, when I'm uncomfortable, I feel kind of tight inside. I feel a little bit like squirmy. That's how it feels to feel uncomfortable. Feeling uncomfortable is part of my human experience. I'm going to feel uncomfortable for a few seconds, and then I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep walking down the aisle. I'm going to say, yep, that was me. I'm talking to you. Yes, your purse is on the ground. And then she'll say, oh, okay, thank you. She'll move on with her day. I move on with my day. So if I'm choose a different path and choose to layer emotions, which I've done multiple times, is I start by thinking, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. And then I move on to, oh, I hate having a lazy eye. Oh, this is the worst. So then I'm like sad about having a lazy eye. And then I'm like, why do I have to have a lazy eye? This is so dumb. Like, this isn't fair. Okay, then I start feeling that way. And then I think, you know what? She should know better. I can't believe she looked behind her. That was super rude, right? So now I'm also feeling judgmental and maybe a little bit angry. And I can, end with like, I hate this. I hate myself. I wish I wasn't like this, right? And then I'm like, got some self-loathing going on. This is all not very fun. So instead of just feeling uncomfortable and allowing myself to feel uncomfortable in that little bit of an awkward moment that is uncomfortable, right? Like, I don't want to be like, yay, I love this happening to me. This is so much fun when people don't know I'm looking at them, right? It's like, it's okay for that to be an uncomfortable situation. But you don't have to make it uncomfortable, and you don't have to make it so you're feeling loathing and anger and judgment and sadness and anxiety, like all these other things that you can layer on top of the discomfort. So what I suggest is instead of layering those emotions and just adding on and heaping on those negative emotions, just stop at the discomfort and be like, yep, this is part of my human experience. I have strabismus and I'm going to experience this sort of situation in my life, and it's okay. I can deal with it, move on. I'm going to feel a little uncomfortable and then go on to the next part of my day, whatever I'm doing next. And I promise, like, even though you still feel a little uncomfortable, you can move on. You don't go home and just tank and spiral and go into depression of like how hard or sad your life feels. Like, you can just kind of stop it right there and then move on. And it's so powerful. So that's tip number 2. Don't layer emotions. Okay, so tip number 3 is slightly superficial. And I don't like to be that kind of person. I don't like to be really superficial and super worried about how I look and all that, but I do. I'm human, right? We just talked about this. I'm totally human. So part of that is that I would like my lazy eye to look less obvious so that it's not as hard to talk to new people, right? Just to ease that so that I don't get this like, oh, me, her, who are you talking to? Like, I wouldn't mind avoiding that if possible. I can do all my thought work and not layer emotions, but ultimately if I can avoid it, A+. So there's a couple things you can do that I discovered once I started taking a bunch of selfies for like my website and Instagram and stuff. I realized that you can move your head just a little tiny bit. It's not like this or like this that you're moving your head. It's just little tiny bits. And right now, unfortunately and fortunately, my eyes are straight enough that it's probably not as noticeable on the camera as it would have been 3 months ago before I had my eye surgery. So maybe I'll include some pictures. I have some pictures that I can kind of show you to show the difference a little bit more. Okay, so as you can see in the pictures, if I turn my head just a little bit to this side or a little bit to this side, what happens is, imagine if my eyes are like this, right? One eye straight, one eye's out. If I turn my head ever so turn my head like this, but keep my eyes forward. So my eyes stay in this position, but my head moves. it kind of centers those eyes. And so instead of being like this, it's more like this kind of a look. And so the white part of my eye, instead of having a really big white part on one side and a really small white part on the other side, kind of center that. So it's like in the middle. So you can turn your head, just a little bit this way or a little bit this way, depending on which way your eyes go. So the general rule of thumb is whatever way your eye turns. So if your eye turns to the right and goes out to the right, then you want to move your head just a little bit to the right. If your eye turns in, your right eye turns in, you want to move it just a little bit to that. And that centers that white part of your eye and makes it less obvious, right? So your eyes still, like if you're doing that, people are going to be like, there's something not quite right. Like they'll still see a difference in your eyes, but it won't be, who are you looking at? It'll be clear that you're looking at them, right? So you're not going to have that experience. So again, the idea is you're going to move your head, tilt your head. You're going to keep your eyes straight and you're going to just move your head whichever way your eye points. So if your eye points this way, move your head that way. If your eye points this way, move your head that way. Even if you're crossing in. So you just move your head towards the same direction that your eye turns. All right, so I hope those tips were helpful for you. Those are some things that have made a big difference for me. If you want to know more about this topic of meeting new people when you have a lazy eye, go over to my website at lazyeyesolutions.com/meet, and you can read the whole article. On the article, I have 6 tips, so the 3 in here plus 3 more talking about where you can actually look and how that can de-accentuate. Is that even a word? I don't even know. But it can make your eye turn look less obvious. Also, just more tips about like when you're actually meeting someone. What if someone teases you? Then what should you do? What if someone looks behind them? What should you actually say? What are the words that are going to help you in those actual situations? So have that all on my website, lazyeyesolutions.com/meet, MEET. And I hope that you find it helpful. And I hope I didn't offend you. Especially, I hope I didn't offend you. I get it. Strabismus is hard. Having a lazy eye is hard. It's nothing to just say, oh, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Just think better thoughts. But if you can think better thoughts and have a happier and more peaceful life, then why not try it?